The morning sun streamed through the half-opened curtains, painting the living room in shades of gold. Grandma Evelyn sat in her favorite armchair, knitting needles clicking softly as she tried to concentrate. Yet her mind was elsewhere, haunted by the memory of her daughter's heartbreak. Claire had been young, in love, and utterly devoted to Daniel. They were supposed to marry that summer, but then everything shattered. Daniel had disappeared for weeks, leaving only vague promises and excuses. Evelyn had tried to comfort her daughter, offering warmth and wise counsel, but even she could not erase the sting of betrayal. And now, a letter had arrived that morning. The envelope was thick, cream-colored, and sealed with a wax emblem she didn't recognize. As she carefully broke it open, her hands trembled. The contents? A wedding invitation. Daniel. To someone else. Her eyes widened in disbelief. How could the man Claire loved so deeply, the man she had trusted above all else, be marrying another woman? Evelyn clutched the letter, her heart pounding. A cold dread settled in her chest. She had always warned Claire to guard her heart, to value herself above all, but nothing could have prepared her for this. The thought of Claire finding out, alone, unprepared, Evelyn knew she had to act. She set her knitting aside, stood up, and began pacing, her mind racing with a plan. But before she could even pick up the phone to warn her daughter, a familiar voice called from the hallway. Evelyn turned and her heart sank. Claire had entered the room, her face pale, her eyes brimming with tears. He's marrying her," Claire whispered. Evelyn's breath caught. "I know, honey," she said softly, trying to steady herself. And in that moment, Evelyn felt a surge of determination. She would not let her daughter suffer alone. She would uncover the truth behind Daniel's betrayal, even if it meant confronting secrets that had been buried for years. But just as she opened her mouth to explain, a knock echoed at the door, loud, insistent, and entirely unexpected. Evelyn froze. Who could it be? And why did her instinct scream that this visitor might change everything? The knock at the door holds a revelation that could change Claire's fate forever. Evelyn cautiously approached the door, her hand trembling on the doorknob. When she opened it, her eyes widened in shock. Standing there was a man in a crisp navy suit, his expression unreadable but tense. "Mrs.?" he asked, his voice calm yet carrying an unmistakable urgency. Evelyn's mind raced. Who was he? A lawyer? A distant relative? And why did he seem so familiar? Before she could respond, he handed her a thick envelope, this one heavier than the previous. "This was sent to Claire," he said. "It's urgent." Evelyn accepted it, her curiosity piqued and her anxiety mounting. She closed the door slowly, her heart pounding. Evelyn shook her head, too preoccupied to answer. She carefully opened the envelope. Inside was a set of photographs and a handwritten letter. As she flipped through the images, her breath caught in her throat. The photographs showed Daniel, not with a stranger, but with someone who looked eerily familiar. It was a woman Claire had trusted, a woman who had been close to the family. Evelyn's mind spun. Could it be possible? Had Daniel truly betrayed Claire, or was there more than met the eye? She glanced up at Claire, whose face had gone pale. Evelyn swallowed hard, trying to formulate words that could prepare her granddaughter for the storm coming. But before she could speak, her phone buzzed violently on the counter. A text message from Daniel. Evelyn felt her stomach drop. The message was short, almost cryptic. "Meet me tonight. I need to explain everything." Evelyn exchanged a look with Claire. Fear, confusion, and curiosity all mingled in the air. This was the moment that could shatter their lives further, or finally reveal the truth. Daniel's message promises answers, but could it be a trap or a confession? Evening descended over the city, painting the streets in muted shades of blue and gold. Evelyn and Claire drove in silence, each lost in thought. Claire clutched the envelope with Daniel's message as if it contained both salvation and doom. Evelyn's hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, her knuckles white. "Whatever happens tonight, remember," Evelyn began, her voice trembling slightly. We face it together. Claire nodded, swallowing hard. The restaurant Daniel had asked to meet at was small, elegant, and tucked away on a quiet side street. As they stepped inside, the warmth of candlelight hit them, contrasting sharply with the cold anxiety in their chests. And there he was, Daniel, standing at the center of the room, his expression a mixture of guilt and desperation. "Claire," he began, but Evelyn held up a hand, stopping her daughter from approaching. Daniel looked startled, glancing at Evelyn. I didn't expect you here," he said. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. "Explain," she demanded, her voice firm yet controlled. Daniel swallowed. "It's not what it looks like. That woman, she's my sister. We were estranged for years, and I only reconnected recently." Evelyn's heart pounded, but her suspicion didn't waver. Could it be true, or was this a clever lie? Claire stepped forward, tears threatening to spill. Daniel's hands shook. "I wanted to. I was afraid of losing you." Evelyn's eyes flicked to her daughter. The raw vulnerability in Daniel's voice tugged at her, but caution screamed louder. There was something deeper here, a hidden layer he wasn't revealing. And just as she was about to demand the full truth, Daniel's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, his face blanching. Evelyn and Claire followed his gaze. The screen displayed a message that made Daniel freeze and made Evelyn realize that the night was about to take an even darker turn. The message glowed on Daniel's phone. "They know. Don't meet them." His eyes widened in panic. Evelyn's mind raced. Who could know, and why? She stepped closer, her voice sharp. "Daniel, what is this about?" Daniel hesitated, his lips trembling. "It's my business partners. They've been manipulating everything for months. The wedding, it was supposed to be a cover. They wanted to force me into an alliance with someone else, to gain access to family assets. I didn't want Claire involved." Claire's face drained of color. Daniel nodded, anguish etched into every line of his face. Evelyn's protective instincts flared. She grabbed Claire's hand. "We need to leave." But as they turned toward the exit, a shadow fell across the doorway. A figure stepped in, a tall man in black, face obscured. His voice was calm, cold, and entirely deliberate. Daniel froze. Evelyn's heart leapt. Was this one of the conspirators? A threat from the shadows that had haunted Daniel's every move? The room seemed to shrink, the candlelight casting eerie, dancing shadows across the walls. Claire clung to Evelyn. She whispered. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. A mysterious figure confronts them, threatening everything Daniel has tried to hide. The man in black advanced slowly, each step deliberate. Evelyn stepped in front of Claire instinctively, her body tense. Daniel's jaw tightened, but he didn't speak. "We don't want any trouble," Evelyn said, carefully, her voice steady. The man tilted his head, his eyes hidden, but his presence radiated menace. "Trouble finds those who hide the truth," he said softly. Evelyn's mind worked frantically. Who was he? A business partner? A criminal? Someone from Daniel's past? And more importantly, what did he want? Daniel took a step forward, trying to shield Evelyn and Claire, but the man raised a hand, stopping him. Then, as if on cue, the restaurant door slammed open. Two uniformed officers entered, scanning the room, their eyes locking onto the man in black. He hesitated, then melted into the crowd, slipping away like smoke. Evelyn exhaled slowly, relief mixing with dread. "This isn't over," she muttered. Daniel sank into a chair, burying his face in his hands. Claire hugged Evelyn tightly. Evelyn met her daughter's eyes. "We uncover the whole truth, no matter what it takes." But just as she spoke, Daniel's phone buzzed again. This time, the message was short, chilling, and unmistakable. "They're coming." Evelyn's stomach turned. The danger was far from over, and the next steps they took could determine everything. A new threat looms, signaling that the conspiracy is deeper than anyone imagined. The next morning, Evelyn awoke to a soft drizzle tapping against the window. Her mind was still racing from the previous night. Daniel's cryptic messages and the mysterious man in black had left a lingering unease. Claire was quiet, nursing a cup of cocoa in the kitchen, her small hands wrapped around the warm mug. Evelyn sat beside her, placing a comforting hand over Claire's. "We need a plan," she said firmly. "We can't wait for things to happen to us." Claire nodded, though her eyes betrayed fear. Evelyn knew she had to act quickly. She contacted an old friend from her investigative days, a retired journalist with contacts who could dig into Daniel's mysterious business partners and the shadowy figure from last night. Within hours, the first pieces of the puzzle began to emerge. Evelyn learned that Daniel had been ensnared in a complicated scheme involving family businesses, hidden debts, and a manipulative woman posing as his fiancée. The more Evelyn uncovered, the angrier she became, not at Daniel, but at those who had sought to ruin his life and, by extension, hurt Claire. She knew time was critical, the wedding was looming, and if they didn't act, Claire might be devastated again. That afternoon, Daniel arrived at Evelyn's house, his face pale and drawn. "I need to tell you everything," he said. Evelyn motioned for him to sit. He began recounting his ordeal, from being manipulated by his supposed fiancée to the threats from the shadowy figure who had appeared in the restaurant. The details were shocking, and Claire listened silently, a mix of disbelief and relief washing over her. But just as Daniel finished his story, a loud knock echoed at the front door. Evelyn froze, her instincts screaming danger. The envelope from last night wasn't the only warning. They weren't safe yet. Another unexpected visitor arrives, threatening to unravel Daniel's carefully guarded secrets. Evelyn cautiously opened the door. Standing there was a woman in a tailored coat, her eyes sharp and calculating. She introduced herself as Miranda, claiming to be a family friend of Daniel's new fiancé. Her smile was polite but unnervingly cold. Evelyn's suspicions flared instantly. "Where's she from?" she asked. Miranda's voice was smooth, almost rehearsed. "I just wanted to clarify some misunderstandings about the wedding." Evelyn narrowed her eyes. Something about this woman felt dangerous, like a shadow lurking behind a friendly mask. Claire stepped closer, gripping her mother's arm. Evelyn could feel the tension radiating from her daughter. "I think you should leave," Evelyn said firmly. But Miranda's smile didn't falter. "I wouldn't if I were you," she said softly. Evelyn realized this wasn't just about a wedding. It was a battle for truth, trust, and safety. She glanced at Daniel. He looked stricken, torn between his past mistakes and the immediate threat Miranda posed. Before anyone could react, Miranda pulled out a small envelope, similar to the ones Daniel had received. "For Daniel," she said. Daniel's hands shook as he opened it. Evelyn's blood ran cold. The stakes were higher than ever, and the danger had entered their home. Miranda's warning reveals that the conspiracy is personal and perilously close. That evening, Evelyn called her old journalist friend for an emergency meeting. They met at a quiet cafe, far from prying eyes. As Evelyn pored over the notes and photographs, a troubling pattern emerged. The threats against Daniel were connected to a series of corporate manipulations and personal vendettas that had targeted him for months. The woman he was supposed to marry wasn't just an opportunist. She was part of a scheme to take control of family assets and isolate him from anyone who could protect him. Evelyn's mind raced. The danger wasn't theoretical, it was imminent. Daniel had been living under the radar, and now, with Claire caught in the middle, it was a matter of survival. That night, as Evelyn and Claire returned home, they found Daniel pacing nervously. "I think I know who's behind all this," he said, his voice tense. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. "Then we confront them," she said, her voice steady, though her heart pounded. They devised a plan: gather evidence, confront the conspirators, and ensure Claire's safety at all costs. But as they executed the plan, Daniel's phone rang again. Evelyn's stomach tightened. Whoever was behind this was watching, waiting, and willing to go to any lengths. A deadly threat looms, warning them to halt their investigation or face dire consequences. The next morning, Evelyn received an anonymous tip, a meeting at an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. She knew it was dangerous, but her resolve to protect Claire and expose the truth overpowered fear. She drove there with Daniel, their nerves taut with anticipation. Inside the warehouse, shadows stretched across the concrete floor. Suddenly, a voice called out. A figure emerged from the darkness. Evelyn's heart skipped a beat. It was Miranda, flanked by two imposing men. Daniel stepped forward, protective and defiant. Evelyn motioned for Claire to stay hidden in the car. Evelyn demanded, her voice echoing through the empty space. Miranda's smile was cruel. Because some people are meant to lose everything. Evelyn clenched her fists, fury coursing through her veins. She had anticipated confrontation, but not the raw malice in Miranda's eyes. Before anyone could act further, the sound of sirens filled the air. Evelyn's journalist friend had tipped off the authorities. Miranda's eyes widened in shock. But just as relief seemed possible, one of the men lunged toward Daniel. Evelyn reacted instinctively, grabbing a nearby metal rod. But the struggle was far from over. A violent confrontation erupts, putting Daniel in immediate danger, and Evelyn must act fast. Chaos erupted inside the warehouse. Evelyn swung the metal rod, striking one of the men and sending him sprawling. Daniel ducked, narrowly avoiding a punch aimed at his head. Miranda shrieked, retreating as the flashing lights of police cars illuminated the scene. Evelyn's mind raced. This was their chance to end the threat once and for all. Officers swarmed in, detaining Miranda and her accomplices. Evelyn felt a mix of relief and lingering fear. Daniel was shaken but unharmed. He looked at Evelyn, gratitude and awe in his eyes. "I don't know how to thank you," he said quietly. Evelyn shook her head. "You don't need to." Daniel nodded solemnly. Outside, Claire ran into Daniel's arms, tears streaming down her face. Evelyn watched, heart full yet wary. The danger might have been temporarily neutralized, but the emotional scars remained. She knew the real battle for trust, love, and family was just beginning. And as she drove home that night, the wind whipping through the city streets, she couldn't shake the feeling that someone, somewhere, was still watching, waiting for the next move. The immediate danger is over, but a lingering threat suggests the conspiracy may not be fully unraveled. The morning after the warehouse incident, Daniel remained unusually quiet. Evelyn noticed it as soon as she entered the kitchen. Claire was at the table, quietly nibbling on toast, her eyes still wide with lingering fear. Daniel sipped his coffee, staring out the window, his jaw tight. "I can't stop thinking about Miranda," he admitted finally. Evelyn's heart ached at his vulnerability. "Then we make sure she can never hurt you or Claire again," she said, her voice firm. But just as they began to discuss their next steps, a knock echoed through the apartment. Evelyn froze. Who else could it be after everything that had happened? She cautiously opened the door to find a delivery envelope, plain, unsigned. Daniel tore it open. Inside were photographs of him, Evelyn, and Claire in their home, their private moments captured without their knowledge. His hands shook. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. Whoever was doing this wasn't done. They weren't just targeting Daniel, they were targeting his family. Panic rose in Evelyn, but she pushed it down. She couldn't let fear paralyze them. She and Daniel began to strategize, secure Claire's safety, uncover the person behind the surveillance, and protect their lives before the situation escalated further. But as Daniel traced the photographs back to a digital watermark, Evelyn realized the truth. The danger wasn't just external. Someone very close, someone Daniel had trusted, was feeding information to Miranda. The surveillance photos reveal a shocking betrayal from someone inside Daniel's inner circle. The next day, Daniel received a cryptic text, "Trust no one." Evelyn could see the weight of it in his eyes. They decided to investigate quietly, avoiding further exposure. They visited Daniel's office under the guise of casual meetings, scanning for suspicious behavior. Evelyn, with her investigative skills, began scrutinizing emails, phone records, and security logs. She noticed a pattern. One employee, a longtime assistant named Carla, had consistently accessed files she had no business touching. Evelyn confronted Carla privately. At first, Carla feigned ignorance, her smile polite but strained. Evelyn's piercing gaze didn't waver. "You're involved," Evelyn said softly, yet firmly. Carla's composure cracked, and she admitted to providing Miranda with information in exchange for financial gain. Evelyn felt a mix of vindication and disgust. Daniel was furious, but grateful for the discovery. They realized that exposing Carla was only part of the solution. Miranda remained at large, her reach far-reaching, and the wedding, meant to unite her with Daniel, was still looming. Evelyn knew time was critical. She needed to prevent the marriage from proceeding before Miranda could manipulate Daniel further. Carla's betrayal uncovers that Miranda's plan is more dangerous and personal than anyone realized. As evening fell, Evelyn devised a bold plan: attend the wedding in disguise to confront Miranda and stop the ceremony. Daniel was hesitant but understood it was necessary. They arranged for Claire to stay with a trusted friend to ensure her safety. The night of the wedding arrived, and the venue was lavish, glittering with golden chandeliers and crystal decorations. Evelyn, dressed in understated elegance, slipped past security and mingled among the guests. She spotted Miranda immediately, radiant and smug, exuding confidence. Daniel, unaware of Evelyn's presence, walked nervously toward the altar. Evelyn's pulse quickened as she observed him. He looked conflicted, torn between obligation and realization. Just as the ceremony was about to begin, Evelyn moved closer. She needed proof to confront Miranda, something undeniable that would expose her deception. From the balcony, she noticed a familiar figure, a photographer discreetly capturing Daniel's every move. Evelyn recognized him from the earlier surveillance photos. He was clearly hired by Miranda. Evelyn's mind raced. She needed to act fast before Daniel made a choice that could ruin everything. She formulated a plan to reveal Miranda's true intentions to everyone present, without putting Daniel or Claire at risk. Evelyn spots Miranda's hired photographer, realizing the wedding will be the ultimate trap unless she acts quickly. The ceremony began, the soft music echoing through the grand hall. Daniel took his place at the altar, looking hesitant, his heart clearly divided. Evelyn, hidden behind a decorative pillar, watched every detail. Miranda glowed, confident that her plan would succeed. Evelyn knew she had one chance to stop this deception. She discreetly accessed the photographer's camera, revealing a live feed of the manipulated images Miranda planned to use to control Daniel. With a few quick moves, Evelyn exposed the feed to the wedding attendees via the projector system in the hall. Gasps echoed across the room as the images projected the truth: Miranda's manipulation, Carla's betrayal, and her plan to seize control of Daniel's life. Daniel's face turned pale, and Miranda's composure faltered. The attendees whispered, confusion and shock spreading like wildfire. Evelyn stepped forward from her hiding spot, holding the evidence in her hand. "This isn't love," she said, her voice ringing clear. "It's a scheme." Daniel's eyes met Evelyn's, relief and gratitude mixing with anger and shock. Miranda, now exposed, tried to regain control, but the room no longer favored her. Security moved in to remove her and her accomplices. Miranda's plan is exposed, but will Daniel confront the full betrayal? And what does this mean for his relationship with Evelyn? Daniel stepped back from the altar, his face a mixture of fury and clarity. He turned toward Evelyn, who had now stepped fully into the light. "You risked everything to protect me and Claire," he said, voice trembling. Evelyn shook her head.
"I did what I had to." Daniel took a deep breath, turning toward the congregation. "I have been deceived," he announced, his voice echoing. The crowd murmured, shocked at the revelation. Miranda, surrounded by security, glared at Daniel with hatred and disbelief. Evelyn's heart pounded. She had prevented disaster, but now the emotional fallout had only begun. Daniel walked out of the altar area, his hands trembling as he clasped Evelyn's. Evelyn nodded, tears welling in her eyes. She had faced danger, betrayal, and manipulation, and come out with her family intact. Claire would be safe, Daniel had clarity, and the wedding had been stopped before it could ruin lives. But Evelyn knew that healing wouldn't be instant. Relationships had been tested, trust had been broken, and the road ahead would be challenging. Daniel must confront the full emotional consequences of the betrayal and choose whether to rebuild or retreat. The morning after the wedding debacle, Daniel sat in his office, staring at the framed photos of happier times. Evelyn entered quietly, her footsteps deliberate but soft. "You've been avoiding everyone," she said, her voice calm but firm. Daniel didn't respond immediately. He was wrestling with guilt. Guilt for being deceived, for nearly hurting those who mattered most, and for the chaos Miranda had left behind. Evelyn placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "It's not just about what she did, it's about what comes next." Daniel exhaled sharply, finally meeting her gaze. "I don't even know where to start," he admitted. "I thought I understood people. I thought I understood love." Evelyn nodded. "Then let's fix that." They spent hours going through Miranda's manipulations, uncovering every deceit and fraudulent document she had planted. But as the afternoon sun dipped low, a new message appeared on Daniel's phone. "You think it's over?" Panic shot through him. Evelyn grabbed the phone, reading the words aloud. Whoever was behind this had not been fully revealed. The threat was not over. Someone still wanted to control Daniel's life, or perhaps hurt those he loved most. A new, ominous message reveals that Miranda's network may still be active, and Daniel's family could be in danger. That evening, Daniel and Evelyn decided to retrace Miranda's contacts, hoping to uncover her hidden allies. They discovered a secret offshore company linked to her, with shell employees and dummy accounts. Evelyn's analytical mind worked overtime. She's built a fortress of deception. Daniel felt a rising dread as he realized just how deep Miranda's plans had gone. Claire, oblivious to the tension, played quietly in her room, coloring on the floor. Evelyn peeked in and felt a pang of responsibility. This child, innocent and trusting, had been caught in the crossfire of adult deceit. They needed a plan that would protect her while unraveling Miranda's web. Just as they were preparing to leave for the next step, the phone rang. The caller ID was blocked. Daniel answered, his voice steady but wary. "Daniel, you think you've won? Think again." A familiar, venomous voice hissed through the line. It was Miranda. She knew they had uncovered her schemes, and she had one final move. Miranda makes a chilling call, indicating she has a last unexpected move that could undo everything Daniel and Evelyn have fought for. Evelyn and Daniel immediately gathered evidence to anticipate Miranda's next move. She had always been strategic, calculated, manipulative, and ruthless. Daniel couldn't help but replay moments from the wedding, realizing how close he had come to losing everything. Evelyn suggested they confront Miranda directly, but Daniel hesitated. He worried about the safety of Claire and himself. "We need to be smart," Evelyn reminded him. That night, they tracked the call to a private location near the outskirts of the city. Disguised and prepared, they approached cautiously. Miranda was there, waiting, as if she had known they would come. "Smutless," she sneered, her eyes glinting with malice. Daniel stepped forward, heart racing, his hand barely trembling. Evelyn, sensing the tension, kept her gaze fixed on Miranda, noting every subtle gesture. They tried to reason, to appeal to logic, but Miranda was unyielding. And then she revealed a shocking twist, one that no one could have anticipated. Miranda drops a revelation that changes the stakes entirely, putting Daniel and Evelyn on the defensive. Miranda leaned in, her voice low but chilling. "You think you know the truth, Daniel? But there's more." Daniel's heart sank. Evelyn sensed the manipulation. It wasn't just a threat, it was psychological warfare. Miranda revealed forged evidence, suggesting Daniel had been unfaithful, planting seeds of doubt among those closest to him. Daniel's breath caught, But Evelyn quickly intervened, presenting the authentic evidence proving his innocence. Miranda's plan was exposed, but the tension didn't dissipate. She had allies, and one of them had infiltrated Daniel's professional life. Every meeting, every email, every decision could be compromised. The couple realized they were not just fighting Miranda, they were up against a network of deceit that had targeted Daniel for years. Every decision from here on could have long-lasting consequences. Miranda's hidden network is revealed, turning what seemed like a personal vendetta into a systemic threat against Daniel's life and career. Determined to end the nightmare once and for all, Daniel and Evelyn devised a strategy to dismantle Miranda's network. They coordinated with law enforcement and cyber experts, tracing fraudulent accounts and secret communications. Every step was tense. One wrong move could endanger Claire. Evelyn worked tirelessly, analyzing data, connecting dots, and anticipating Miranda's counteractions. Daniel, though anxious, stayed by her side, providing insight into Miranda's psychology. As the team closed in, a surprise awaited them. Miranda had anticipated this and set one final trap. The trap was personal, targeting Daniel's most vulnerable moments. Evelyn's stomach dropped as she realized that the confrontation ahead would test not just their intelligence and bravery, but their trust in each other. Every choice could determine who survived this final showdown. Miranda sets a final, personal trap. Daniel and Evelyn must confront the ultimate test of trust and survival. The morning of the final confrontation arrived with an icy wind cutting through the city streets. Daniel and Evelyn arrived at a secluded warehouse where Miranda had summoned them under false pretenses. Every step echoed against the cold concrete walls, amplifying their tension. Evelyn held Daniel's hand tightly. "Whatever happens, we stick together," she whispered. Inside, Miranda lounged arrogantly in a chair, a smug grin painted across her face. "So predictable," she said, her tone mocking. Daniel stepped forward, steadying himself, the weight of the past months pressing down on him. But as they moved closer, Miranda's guards, men and women carefully selected and trained, stepped into view, surrounding them. Panic threatened to rise, but Evelyn signaled calm. Their plan was simple: distract, disable, and expose. They exchanged a brief glance, understanding without words. The tension reached its peak when the first confrontation began. Miranda's eyes sparkled with malice, but Daniel and Evelyn had the advantage of preparation. Miranda's guards close in, but Daniel and Evelyn have a hidden strategy ready. Will it succeed or fail? Chaos erupted in the warehouse as Daniel and Evelyn executed their plan. Evelyn used her knowledge of Miranda's routines to predict the guards' movements, guiding Daniel as they dodged and countered attacks. Daniel confronted Miranda directly, his voice strong, unwavering. "It ends today, Miranda. No more lies." Miranda laughed, a cold, hollow sound. "Gah, gah, gah," she taunted, lunging for a hidden weapon. But Evelyn intervened, throwing a smoke device she had prepared, plunging the room into a haze. The guards faltered, disoriented, allowing Daniel and Evelyn to gain the upper hand. Amid the confusion, Daniel seized Miranda's evidence, files, devices, and incriminating documents that exposed her network. He held them high, proof of her crimes. Miranda's face twisted in rage, realizing her control slipping. Miranda is cornered, but she has one final, desperate move that could change everything. As Miranda's panic escalated, she activated a remote trigger that locked the warehouse doors and threatened to destroy the evidence. Daniel's pulse raced. Evelyn's mind worked faster. They discovered the override panel hidden behind a stack of crates. With a few precise moves, Evelyn disabled the trigger just in time. Miranda screamed in frustration, realizing her plans were unraveling. The authorities, alerted earlier by a silent signal Evelyn had sent, arrived just as the final confrontation reached its peak. Miranda was taken into custody, her network dismantled, and the threat to Daniel and Claire neutralized. Relief flooded Daniel, but the months of deception had left scars. He looked at Evelyn, gratitude and admiration shining in his eyes. "We did it," he said quietly. Even though Miranda is captured, Daniel and Evelyn realize that healing their emotional wounds will be a challenge in the days ahead.
Back home, Daniel embraced Claire tightly, feeling the weight of months of fear and uncertainty lift slightly. Evelyn stood nearby, smiling softly. "It's going to be okay now," she assured them. The house felt warm again, infused with the hope and security they had been missing. Daniel began rebuilding trust with Claire, filling her days with love, laughter, and attention, while Evelyn supported him every step of the way. The scars from Miranda's deception lingered, but they were no longer paralyzing. Daniel reflected on the lessons he had learned: trust cautiously, love deeply, and never take honesty for granted. Evelyn, too, found strength in her courage and strategic thinking, realizing that her presence had been vital to preserving both Daniel's and Claire's safety. They had survived deception, betrayal, and manipulation, and emerged stronger. Daniel faces a final, personal decision. Will he take the next step toward love and commitment with Evelyn, or remain cautious? Weeks later, Daniel invited Evelyn and Claire to a quiet holiday celebration in their home. The fireplace crackled warmly, casting a soft glow. Daniel held Evelyn's hand and looked into her eyes. "After everything, I've realized life is too short to fear love," he admitted. Evelyn's eyes glistened with tears of relief and joy. Claire, holding a small ornament, smiled brightly. Daniel knelt before Evelyn. No grand theatrics, only sincerity. "Will you continue this journey with me?" Evelyn nodded, her voice catching. "Yes." They embraced, the warmth and relief of love finally overcoming the months of tension and danger. Miranda's shadow had been vanquished, the deceit exposed, and the family rebuilt. Daniel, Evelyn, and Claire stepped into a new chapter, stronger and closer than ever. The moral of their story resonated clearly. Even through betrayal and heartbreak, honesty, courage, and steadfast love could heal wounds, rebuild trust, and create a new beginning. Life is fragile, and love is worth the risk, even when the past seems impossible to overcome.